Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Masterless, the Paperless Real Estate Transaction using the Form Simplicity program. And this webinar is exclusively for the BHHS Florida Realty members. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday, everybody. And just as Marianne mentioned, this session is being recorded as we speak. So that way, at the end of the session, once it generates the recording, I will forward it to Marianne as well as to everyone else who is in attendance, and then she can also have the the link so she can distribute it to all the other agents in your office. So welcome, everyone. And what we're going to be talking about here for the next couple of hours, because I know we were talking about doing a basic and advanced. Well, I'm going to combine them into one. So what I normally would cover in a basic and what I would cover in advance, we're going to just go ahead and incorporate both of those two things into this particular session, and then you'll still get the best of both worlds. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. And then also, I just haven't had the time to get it out, but I will also email everyone here a training handout that what we've discussed here this morning. You'll have something that you also can reference there as well, because some of us may like to not listen to a video for 2 hours, but then there might be some that might want to scan through a document to go through the step-by-step process as well. All right, let's go ahead, and before we get started, I do want to just mention that you all have access to the tech helpline. It's a member benefit through FloridaRealtors. So that would be something that you want to go ahead and do. Contact them at 407-587-1450. Once again, 407-587-1450. They are available to you Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you have 7 days of tech support. They can assist you with Form Simplicity, any questions on ESign. If you have any questions on any other member benefit that's out there, such as MLS Advantage, SunStats, give them a call. They are there to assist you. They eat, they drink, and they sleep technology. So technology is their middle name. Give them a call and they will be very happy to assist you. They'll even assist you if you have any technology issues. So I don't know if you have an IT person that you have that can help you out, but if you're at home and you're having some difficulty with your technology or maybe one of your software programs, they will be very happy to assist you with that as well. So just give them a call and they'll be very happy to do that. And then last but not least, you are not required to put your video on, because this is not a CE credited class. So if you do want to shut your video off, you are welcome to do that. Because normally when I do a class and it's a CE credited class, we normally like to have people with their videos on just to make sure that they are in person and things like that. So that is something that I would like to just mention in passing. Okay, and also, which I forgot to do, and that's very important here, is I wanted to also let you know here too, that you can go ahead and just introduce myself. That's the one thing I forgot to go ahead and do. And that is, my name is Kaz Cisowski. I am the FloridaRealtors Technology Training Manager, and I teach Form Simplicity. I teach ESign, MLS Advantage, even the SunStats program. So I do a lot of the member benefits training here for FloridaRealtors. I also go around the entire state teaching Form Simplicity, because now a lot of associations that I've gone to so far this year have slowly opened up and members are starting to trickle into the associations. I already did a couple this week. I did a couple last week, and I got 3 coming next week. So I love to go and interact with the members. Okay, so let's go ahead and get out of my PowerPoint presentation. So let me go ahead and do that right now. And based on how you all access the Form Simplicity program, this is the screen that you're going to be seeing. So that's something that will always be seen. You all should be familiar with Form Simplicity. I don't know if we have any new members, but if we do, welcome on that too. And we're going to go ahead and talk about Form Simplicity from the standpoint of you never using the program, because sometimes by just teaching it that way, you can kind of have a pretty good idea as to what is other tips and tricks that I can provide you within that. So I'm going to go through the whole entire motion. Also, there has been a couple of new features that have been added to Form Simplicity. Actually, it was a couple of days ago. So I will go ahead and mention that to you also, because I think it's important that you know that, first of all, Form Simplicity, I think from what I gather here, I think we're the only ones that really update our program pretty often. Ever since we changed over to this new version a few years ago, we've been updating this, and of course, I can't stay up with it because I have to keep updating my training handouts. So anyway, enough of that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, first of all, have you go to the help button here. If you're following along with me on your computer, you're welcome to do that as well. I'm going to go ahead and take us directly to the Help Center here, just to let you know that you all have access to the knowledge base support articles, which here gives you the step-by-step along with the screenshot as to what you need to be doing within that program, within that feature. Here it says import MLS data into transactions. So here it gives you a step-by-step along with a screenshot. So if you're one of those that like to kind of scan through those like I do, it's easy to read through it, gives you the screenshots. That way you can kind of see how Form Simplicity works in writing. However, if you're more visual, we have members who are visual, then you can go ahead and click on the How To Video button here, which is going to take you automatically to our tutorials for each of these features that you see here. All right. So that would be something that you can go ahead and take a look at. But where I'm actually wanting to take us to, because this is going to save you some time. I know it worked really well for me, because having been a former realtor myself, and I was a realtor for 7 years before coming on board and being their trainer here at FloridaRealtors. So I was a realtor myself, and I'm going to be teaching you Form Simplicity from how I used to use it. Not everybody's going to use what I use, but hey, this is a way I felt it was very efficient for me. And what I'm talking about is right over here under the Preferences section. I don't know if any member here has ever gone to the Preferences section. If you have not, I think you're kind of missing a little bit here. And let's go ahead and click on that Preferences section. And what you're going to be seeing here, let me try that again. It's not clicking. Here we go. It's going to take you to my preferences. Now, as you can see, we have all of these sections here. We're not going to go over each one of these. I'm going to point out a couple of these sections, but I just wanted you to be aware that you may want to go in here and check it out, because the first thing I want to take you to very quickly is your account information. This contains your agent name, your office information, your address, and your contact information. Now, notice that in the agent name, the NERDS number, office name, and office address cannot be changed. It's grayed out. So if there is an issue with any of those 4 fields, then the best thing to do would be to contact your local association, and then they can go ahead and check it out in their membership system, because we're getting nightly updates from your associations, from all of the associations in Florida that are in Florida. And so therefore, you're going to be able to view this information. And if their information is correct, then the next best thing to do would be to contact the tech helpline, and they can investigate your account. But this is something that you might want to consider taking a look at, making sure, because if you ever wonder why something's not signing right or your name's not in there right, always check out your account information here, and that way you can get it straightened out for the next time you do an e-sign and so on. The next section I want to go to and concentrate on is the general settings. Now, we don't have to worry about the time zone, because the time zone will always be Eastern time zone. That's where we all are located. I'm currently based here in Orlando, doing my webinar here in Orlando. here at the FloridaRealtors headquarters. So we're all going to be Eastern. Now, of course, if you're up in the Panhandle, you're going to be Central. And if you go outside of Florida, you're going to be in those different time zones. But we're not concerned with the time zone. We're actually concerned with the email signature. Your email signature is your contact information that appears automatically at the end of any email message that you send out. And that email signature will automatically appear in 3 of these features that you see where my mouse is. The first one is outgoing form simplicity emails, collaboration invitation emails, but most importantly, ESign. When you're using the ESign program, in step number 1 of ESign, it's going to automatically include that in the first step of your ESign. So that way you don't have to keep typing in your name, your company name, and your contact information. As soon as you put that into your email signature section right over here, it's automatically going to appear in your ESign program. And we'll show you that when we get to that screen later on in the next hour. Once you fill all this information in, just click on the Save Changes button, and then Form Simplicity is going to confirm that those changes have taken effect. It will not give you, or it won't allow you to put in a headshot of yourself or a logo at this time. That's something that is being looked at, and hopefully within, I don't know when, because I'm not involved with the programming part of it, but they have it in the queue, and it's just a matter of time when they get that all programmed in. But that's something that has been talked about, has been suggested by all of our Florida Realtor members, that would be something nice to have. So that's something that they will be working with, just a matter of when it will be available. Once you fill all this information in, like I said, just click on the Save Changes, and then Form Simplicity is going to confirm that the settings have been successfully saved. The next section I want to take you to is your email notifications, because I think this is a very important section. This is because this is going to show you how mobile you are. Okay, I consider this feature making every member here the 21st century mobile realtor, because the fact of the matter is you're going to get notified when anything will occur in your transaction. This is all pertaining to your transactions right here. And notice that I have 6 of these items that are in the send mode. Most of us probably, if you're following along on your computer, is probably showing you something like that. Okay, but I would suggest, and that's just my suggestion, and that's how I had it set up when I was a realtor, is I had all of these in the send position. And what these are basically is the first one. You're going to get a task reminder when something is due for that particular transaction, such as, let's say, an inspection, right? You may have an inspection that's going to be due later on today or tomorrow. You can go ahead and get notified. Guess what, Kaz? Time to get working on this. You haven't gotten the inspection report yet. I think it's time to get in contact with the home inspector. That's just an example. Also, this is a pretty cool feature here. Hopefully we're going to have time to cover that in our class here this morning. If not, we're going to have to probably do another round another day. But this second one, first of all, this came about, or it became included in the email notification section a week ago Monday. It says here that when an assigned task is marked as complete, the nice thing about when you create transactions, when you create transactions, you can create tasks. But when you create tasks, the nice thing about it is that you can actually assign it to a service provider or someone who does the work for you, such as maybe a handyman. You know, maybe you have someone or a plumber, or maybe a photographer, something to that effect. But that would be something that you can assign to. And as soon as that service provider completes the task, you're going to get an email notification that the task that you provided, let's say the plumber to do, because you got a leak in one of the properties underneath the sink, the pipes leaking and all that stuff, you're going to get notified that the plumber took care of that leak. Don't have to worry about making the phone call and say, hey, Mr. Plumber, did you fix that leak? So this is something that you can go ahead and definitely put this in the send position. Also, the third line item, very quickly, I don't know if anybody receives faxes, but if you do, you can always have that fax go directly into a transaction. Mostly everyone will probably get this next one, where when you receive an email message or an attachment, you want to definitely get that into receiving an email notification on that. This would be a good thing if someone, let's say a buyer's agent, sends you a buyer's offer and they send it directly to the transaction. I'll show you how that comes about when we get to the transaction section of the session here. The second one, the fifth one here, is the line item where it says when a comment is made on a shared form or file. That's referring to our collaboration feature, which is Form Simplicity's negotiating platform. This is a pretty cool feature. This eliminates you having to do strike-throughs and initials when you're currently in a contract, let's say. And it also saves you the time of having to not redo the contract, so you have a nice clean contract. You can actually have a nice clean contract by using the collaboration feature. If we have time to cover that, I would love to cover that. And like I said, if we can't, because other features are more important, then we can maybe do that at another time. Most importantly, and I don't know if your broker, if your office does it, but Form Simplicity has a paperless version of your submittal. In other words, the broker can create a document checklist. You, the agent, can submit the paperwork to the broker electronically. The broker can review it, and then if the checklist and the submittal that the agent submits to the broker is okay, then it's going to be approved as a completed broker submittal. If there's some paperwork missing or some initials are missing, then it's going to be returned to the agent as an incomplete. Now, if it's completed, the actual submittal that the agent that the broker approves is no longer available to be opened up. It's locked. In other words, you can't click on that form anymore because the broker has completed it as an approved submittal. So that's something that I don't know if you all do that or not, but I'm just going over the various notifications. So you know what what you're doing in your brokerage. I'm just throwing this down the list. The next section I want to go over, I think is really important, is the ESign Preferences and Templates. This is the place where I'm going to just talk about two features here. And we're talking about right here where it's highlighted. I'm going to show you how you can also receive email notifications from ESign showing you the progress of the ESign session. I think that's a neat thing. When I sat in a class similar to what you all are doing here today, when I became a realtor and I started using the ESign program, let me tell you, when this trainer taught us this thing here, I'm like, wow, this is a cool feature. And so, of course, I've always implemented that in my training, because I feel that this is a very important feature to make you do less work. Okay, that's kind of where I'm going with this. Because let's say if you didn't set this all up, where would you normally go and check the progress of your ESign session? You probably would go into your transactions, and then you're probably going to go into your transaction itself here. So let's say this is the one you're going to use. You're going to scroll down, you're going to go to ESign sessions, and then you're going to click on the sent. And you know how many clicks we just did? We must have did 4 to 5 clicks just to find out what the progress of that signing session is. Why do I have to click on all of that stuff if I can go ahead and just access and set up my notifications in there? Also, we're going to show you that you can actually draw your signature in ESign in the settings part. That's what we're doing. We're setting this up. And then you can basically, okay, sign it. And then when it's your turn to sign a specific form, all you got to do is click, and that's going to be your signature right there. So that way you don't have to keep signing every single time you have to do a portion of that specific form. So let's go ahead and go into that. And I'm going to click on the Manage ESign Preferences and Templates. which will then take me to another screen. And give me a moment. I gotta clear my history. I forgot to do that. I do a lot of training, so give me a moment here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. And I'm going to try this one more time. So I'm going to have to log off of Form Simplicity again, so it can accept the change that I just did. And preferences. Yeah, when I do a lot of training, it takes up a lot of the cache. So I just deleted the cache out of here. And this is exactly the screen I really wanted to show you right off the bat. So there are 3 buttons here: personal preferences, signature preferences, and templates. I'm not going to worry about the templates because you all have your own set of forms in the forms library. So this would be more for members who do not have their brokerage forms in the forms library. I'm just going to concentrate on these 2 buttons here. So the first button I'm going to go ahead and go over is your personal preferences section. And in your personal preferences section here, what I'm showing you here is that these are your email notifications. Now, the only checkbox that you normally would see would be when the session has been signed. And you all know that every time you get an email notification from ESign, the only email notification you're going to get is that they have completed the signature, each individual signer. And then you'll get one whole one that everyone has completed their signing session. But here, I'm going to go ahead and click on this session started. When you check mark that you're going to get an email notification as soon as the signer clicks on the review and sign, and then they're going to go ahead and review their 3 steps where they have to check their name and initials to make sure all of that is correct. They're going to select the signature, and then they have to agree to the consumer disclosure. So you're going to get an email notification that one signer is going to get started. He clicked on, or she clicked on in that email from ESign, that review and sign. Then once they finish that and then they click on the start button, it's going to take them to the forms that they have to sign or initial. And when that happens, you want to maybe check mark this, because that way you're going to get an email saying, okay, Kaz, guess what? They're finally now clicking on the forms. They're reviewing it. So, hey, that's great news. All right. Then after that, you're going to get your the standard email notification that the session had been signed and it's now going to be sent out to you. So therefore, you're going to get a total of 3 notifications per signer. Then all you have to do is to go ahead and click on the update preferences, and then that automatically gets it done. So if I click it here, it's going to say that your changes have been saved. The next feature in here is your signature preferences. I would suggest that you go into your signature preferences here and do it. Select one of these, either these signature fonts, which has been created by ESign. And believe it or not, they are all legal signatures based on the Electronic Signature Act of the year 2000. That's when it all got passed. So any of these 6 signature fonts is valid, even though you may not sign this way, but that's an option that you have. Or if you prefer, you can go ahead and draw your signature. So if I draw my signature, and of course I'm using a mouse, and I'm not really good at doing this. That's why when I did my signature like this, I had my iPad, got in, I used my stylus, and then signed away and also initialed it. And that's the way I like to sign. This is kind of close to what I signed, but not necessarily there. Okay. But that's something that you can go ahead and do. But believe it or not, this signature is a valid signature. How many of us go to a store where now everything is all electronic and you put your credit card and you sign, you use your finger, right? And sometimes people don't sign the way they sign anyway. So it's also, once again, this would be considered a valid signature. Just remember that whichever one of these you select, whether it's a signature font or you draw your signature, remember to click on the update preferences, and now your changes have been saved. All right. One other thing I want to mention is that if you wanted to, you can always have a two-factor authentication set up. I don't know if anybody does that with their, I don't know if anyone here has an iCloud account, but that might be something that you might consider doing. I know I do that for my iCloud. I don't know if I want to do this for my Form Simplicity, because for me, having Form Simplicity has been around since 2008, it's always been secure. It's always been secure. And I was always satisfied with the Form Simplicity because I found it to be a super secure program. Even its counterpart, ESign, was also a very secure program. So I was always pleased, never needed to add an extra layer. But if you really want to add that, just click on the slider here to the send mode, and then just put in your phone number to put in the phone number to that you want to receive the authentication code, or if you want the authentication code can come via email. But I'm going to go ahead and shut this off because I really don't want to use that. But that's an option that everybody here can do. Now, this is something new that just came out, believe it or not. Let's see, today is Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. I think it came out this past Tuesday, the 8th. Yeah. And you can also see this in your notification section here. It talks about that what we've done here is we've added, and of course, they're going to be adding some more integrations into Form Simplicity. And I'm referring to this new section called integration. This is a handy tool that has been added into Form Simplicity because this is what members have asked. And there's a lot of members who use Google Calendar. Now, I don't use Google Calendar. I use Outlook because I like Outlook. It's always worked well for me. But there are members out there in the state of Florida, as well as all of our other clients, who use Google Calendars. And anytime that a member had created a task or put in transaction dates, they always wanted to get some sort of reminder notice that something is due, like in a transaction, it's about to expire. And then, of course, tasks also. So instead of having you get an email reminder through Form Simplicity, you can now get reminded on your Google Calendar. So what you have to do is, first of all, and I'm going to go ahead and get out of this for a second just to show you how this works. Because when you're going into this integration section, this is the screen it's going to look like. It's going to have your Google Calendar with off. All right, that's when you're first starting. When you click on it, it's going to go ahead and ask you, do you want to sign in with Google? And this is what the Google Calendar feature is going to do. It's going to give you the ability to integrate your ads and updates to any of your important transaction dates and tasks with your Google Calendar, allowing you to keep tabs on any upcoming milestone or due dates. That's pretty cool. This is something that members have been asking Form Simplicity to do for several years, but obviously we've changed the program, and it does take time with programming, but we actually did finally get it done this week. All you got to do is go in and click on sign in with Google. It's going to now I've already signed in before, but what it's going to also do is, before it goes away, it's going to ask you to log into Google. So you have to remember to have your email address, because that's the your login, and then your Gmail email address, and then you have your password. And then once you go through the motion of going in there, then it's going to say that is on. So now, as you're doing your Form Simplicity transactions, it's going to automatically go straight into your Google Calendar. Now, I'm not going to be able to show it here because I don't use Google Calendar, but you'll see when you play around with it that it's going to work. But now, everything now that you're working in Form Simplicity will now work with your Google Calendar. That's pretty cool stuff. So this is something that you may want to go ahead and play around with, because this is what you all wanted. All right. That's all I was going to talk about that. Any questions about my preferences before we get off of this screen? And if you do, please enter that information in the chat feature. All right. I don't see any, so I'm going to keep on going. And if I do see any questions, I'll pause and answer those questions as we need to. All right, I'm going to go back, hit the home button. The next thing I would do, and this is what I did do, I would go ahead and add a contact. I always wanted to put in contacts into Form Simplicity, because this way I'm going to have a reference as to who's going to be involved in the particular transaction. And then that way I can auto-populate that transaction with those contacts. It saved me a lot of time once again. So how do I add a contact? The way to add a contact is by clicking on the Add a Contact button. And here you're going to put in the name of the people. So here we're going to call it, let's enter in here, let's say Wes Jones. All right. And as soon as I type in the first and last name, the Create Contact button becomes active, because these two are the fields that have to be filled in order for this button to be active. They're both required. And then, of course, try to complete this contact screen as best as you can. I want you to notice one thing that it's also been added this week, and that is right down below, because a lot of members were asking about it, company name. And the reason why we added the company name is now, since we're adding service providers as part of the assignment of tasks, obviously not everybody is non-company kind of a thing. You have to put the name of the company of, let's say, the plumber, or put the name of the company of the handyman, or put the name of the company of the inspector. At least now you can go ahead and put that company name there, especially if you're going to be putting in, let's say, an appraiser or a bank or something like that. So you could put the name of the person, and then you could put the name of the company of the bank is right over here. So fill this in as best as you can. If you're not planning on completing all of this, and this happens to be just, let's say, a certain type of contact, not requiring company name, at least enter in their email address, because their email address is really, really important to put here, because that's going to be the smooth transition when you go from Form Simplicity into ESign later on in this class. I would suggest that we enter in a password. So the password for this particular client is going to be this email address. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Contact. And then Form Simplicity is going to go ahead and confirm that your contact has been added. Pretty cool, pretty swift, pretty quick. Now, obviously, if you're going to be bored to tears tonight because you have no plans on a Friday night, or maybe tomorrow night on a Saturday night, this would be a great opportunity for you to add all of your contacts. But I know you all are busy, you all have plans, so obviously this is not going to work. But the next, second way of putting contacts into Form Simplicity is by going up to the Contacts button right up here on the main navigation menu. Click on Contacts, and it's going to direct you to the People's screen right over here. And here we have two sub tabs. We're only going to talk about one of these two tabs, because again, some of the stuff is pretty straightforward, but I'll just discuss the groups in just a second. But here, as soon as you put in a contact, this is the place where all of your contacts will appear. Now, what I want to show you is that you can also import your contacts by clicking on the import button right here. And you have these three sources that you can import your contacts from. The first is the easiest of the three, and that is you can go into your Gmail account. Click on the sign in button here. It's going to then give you a pop-up window letting you know, before you import from Gmail, you got to make sure that you close any of your Gmail and Google Drive apps. Make sure you close both of those. This way it doesn't have any authentication issues when it's time to open up and pull that into Form Simplicity. So once you have your Gmail and your Google Drive app closed, then all you got to do is to click on the sign in, continue on. Sometimes I have to do it a couple of times. And here is my account. Click on the account, type in your password. Now I'm still having issues with my import. It's supposed to be loading the contacts and it's not loading on my training account, but it should automatically do that on yours. But there is a hiccup in my training account, and that's why I'm waiting for them to fix it. But what it normally would do is download or upload the contacts from Gmail, where there you're going to have the opportunity to do two things. One, you can select all of your contacts, or just pick and choose the contacts that you want. I don't know if we have any members out there that have Outlook, but if you want, you can always do Outlook as well. However, when you do import from Outlook, what you have to keep in mind there is that you first of all have to export your contacts from Outlook. That's just the way it has to be done. Microsoft requires you to first of all export your contacts. And once you export your contacts, the file type that when you export that has to be a comma separated value. That means it's like an Excel spreadsheet, except it's not going to be an Excel spreadsheet. It's actually going to be an Excel comma separated value. It still have the spreadsheet look and feel, but it's going to be in a comma separated value. That's just the format that Form Simplicity requires. And that's a standard industry import. All you got to do is to click on the browse button here, locate your file. So I've already created one already. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull it up, hit the open button, and then hit import your contact file. And here we're going to see all of the contacts basically that we have saved in our from Outlook into a comma separated value, where here you can select all of your contacts. So here I have all 35 of them, or I can pick and choose the one that I want. All right, by just check marking these boxes here. See that? All right, so that's all you would need to do there. You can also import from your portable devices, your smartphones, your iPad, your tablet, because the type of contacts that you have in those devices is what we call virtual card or vCard. Every time you create a text or an email on your portable device, it creates a contact with this type of an extension. So what you need to do is you would need to connect your devices to your computer, your laptop, whatever your device you use, and then just import that information there as well. And then, of course, you can also do it from your portable devices as well. In each of these cases, the thing I can, the best advice I can offer you here is to contact the tech helpline if you have any difficulty with, at least with the last one. But if you still have it with the other two, please give them a call. That's what they're there for. They're there to assist you. Now, the only thing that you can do once you've imported your contacts, the only thing that you can click on is the people's names, because see, none of these can be clicked on except their name. So let's say that I have a client who I want to revise their name, and her name is Anonymity. And of course, to this day, I still don't know who she is. But the fact is that I'm going to go ahead and click on her name, and then I can change anything in her contact screen here. I can add things. So let's say I change her cell number. Her cell number is this. I mistyped the number here, and then click on update contact. And now I get a confirmation message saying that the contact has been updated. So you can use it to edit or to just to view the contact information. All right. Now, I know I don't know if I teach so many offices, and some offices say yes and no, but I think in your case, I think that you all, I believe, have your own set of clauses that the brokerage has created for you. So I believe I'm going to go ahead and bypass that. If I do need to, then I will go ahead and do it. But as of right now, until I hear otherwise, I'm going to bypass putting in clauses because your brokerage probably has already set them up. I know most of the Berkshire Hathaway brokerages have their own set of clauses set up by the broker for the agents to use. You know exactly what the broker knows, exactly what you need to be filling in for your forms. So I'm going to go ahead and bypass that feature so we can go ahead and talk about the next feature. And that is the forms library. The forms library. How do I get to the forms library, you may ask? Well, it's very simple because forms library basically contains what? Blank forms. And so therefore, the giveaway right here is the blank forms button here on the main navigation menu. So if you click on blank forms, it's going to direct you to the forms library right over here. Now, I'm not in as your office, but what you should see in your forms library is 1, the Florida forms, 2, the Fannie Mae forms, 3 would be your Berkshire Hathaway forms, and 4 might be the Miami forms. I don't know if the Miami Association has a forms library there, but that would be something that would appear automatically inside there. So all we want to go ahead and do here is I'm going to click on the Florida forms here. And as you can see, these are all forms that are currently updated, and they've been even updated. Some of them were updated this year, and some of them have been updated last year. Mostly the contracts here have been updated November 1. So just play around with this. And of course, if your brokerage is telling you to go ahead and work with their forms, please go ahead and do that as well. Just a couple of things here I want to discuss. One, if you happen to be in the Florida forms, if you take your mouse and let's say I'm going to go down to the where it says the TRID, if you take your mouse and you hover on any of these forms, it does come up with a pop-up window telling you exactly what type of form this is, when it should be used, who should be the transaction participants involved in this transaction, and then also the last time that form had been updated. So this is something that you can go in and obviously look at on your own. Also note here too, that let's say that you can't find certain forms. Well, guess what you have? You have a feature here called Search Forms Library. Okay, I just saw Marianne chatted about the clause. Let's pass on that. Okay, good. So now what we're going to talk here is how to search for your forms. This is a pretty cool feature. I don't know how many members we have here who've may have just joined your brokerage, or maybe even people who've been around for a few years. You may not be familiar with how to locate your forms. And this is a handy tool for everybody. And what I'm looking for is, let's say I'm looking to find the lead-based paint disclosure. So if I click on if I just type in here lead as my keyword, just one keyword, that's all I need to type in here. Click on the search button here. It's going to automatically pull up a list of all the forms that have the word lead in the title of the form and not in the content of the form. So that is something that is cool feature. If you want to look for something else, you want to find out anything that has the word contract in it, or even better, how about we just do residential? And if we do a search for residential type of forms, it's going to pull up everything that's got residential in the title of the form. So here you're going to have, let's say, the residential contract for sale and purchase, the as-is residential contract for sale and purchase, even the seller property disclosure form, and things like that. So you can kind of pretty much have an idea how to basically to pull up those forms. Another nice feature that we have in the library, and this way it's going to keep you more efficient, is to the left of the title of each of these forms, there's a preview button here. So before you open up a form, and you want to make sure you got the right form. So what you want to do is just click on, I'm going to do it to the left of the buyer's disclosure statement. If I click on the preview button here, it's going to give me the first page. If this happens to be a multi-page form, it'll just give me the first page, the screenshot. It's all it is a screenshot. I cannot complete this. And so that way, is this the form that you would like to use? And if so, then you just click on the side to remove this screenshot, and then just click on the actual form. So this is a good thing for you to preview any of these forms before you actually open it up. All right. So that is your forms library, where we actually searched and then we actually preview. Now, I know everyone here in the office at your brokerage are all kind of going paperless, right? But sometimes you may have to print a specific form because of a customer asking you to do that. So you can actually go ahead and select a form, and then I can go ahead and click on the printer button here, or I can click on the print button here. So in both cases, you see right over here your command line: print, email, download, print, email, download. And this here is the same as your add to transaction, as your add to the transaction button right up here. So this right here is the same as this toolbar down here. Now, some of us probably saying, but hey, Kaz, I don't see it on the right side. Mine shows up on the left side. So it may look something like so. And if that's the case, that's because your screen resolution is different than what I have here on my screen. So the larger the screenshot, the larger the screen resolution, the more likely it's going to appear on the right side. So if I go here and I do this, and if I do it one more time, you see that it's going to still stay on the right side. All right, but that's something that you can go ahead and set up, take a look at on your own time. And then also, I've been I believe, asked not to talk about forms packages, because the brokerage also has created those for you too. So you just kind of follow the broker's lead, and we're going to go ahead and continue on. So the next thing I want to go ahead and talk about is how to start a new transaction. So how do I start a new transaction? Very simply, the quickest and easiest and efficient way of doing a new transaction is by clicking on your start a new transaction from the recent transaction screen that we see right here. Very simple. Click on a start new transaction, and then it's going to give you this new transaction pop-up window. So let's say that I am going to enter in here, by the way, both the street address and the transaction name. Both of those fields are required to be completed before you can click on the create transaction button down below here. So let's say I'm going to type in an address, and I always like to type it in uppercase just so it stands out. And let's say that the address is going to be 3030 Meadow Lane, and this is over in Weston, Florida. And the zip is 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 1. So that's your zip code down there in Weston for this particular address. Then I have to also include the transaction name. Now, I don't know how your naming convention is for transaction name is at your brokerage, but whatever it is, follow your brokerage, your broker's lead on this. Let's say that your broker says, hey, for every transaction name, I want you to put in the address, plus I also want you to put in the last name of the client. So if that's what your broker says that they would like to have your transaction name to be, then go ahead and go for it. If you all use maybe like a transaction number of some kind, because some brokerages has like a system, then use that as well. So, but my make-believe brokerage doesn't have that. So therefore, all I've got to do is enter the same, the transaction name to be the same as the street address. Instead of me having to type all of that information in, I can just click on the same as address and it automatically fills it in. But then you go, oops, I meant to put the last name. Well, you can still do that. All I've got to do is click on this field put the mouse in front of the address and put in the last name. So I can go ahead and do that. You see that? I can do that. So you're not going to be totally down and out. Any field that in automatically can always be editable. All right. It can always be changed. No problem whatsoever. So in the new transaction window here, also the screen, we also would, I would also suggest that you enter what type of property this is. This happens to be a residential property. Then of course here, what type of transaction? Now in this example, I'm going to be playing the role of the seller's agent because I've done my listing presentation at this property. And now the seller calls me up and says, okay, I want you to create a seller's package for me to sign so I can go ahead and put that into MLS. So I'm going to go ahead and select listing since I'm a seller's agent. If you're a buyer's agent, you would select purchase. If you're both the listing and you're the listing and buyer's agent, you would select the listing and purchase. If you're a leasing agent, then this would be your option here. But I'm in here as a seller's agent, so I'm going to select listing. Now, at this point in time, I can go ahead and create a transaction. Click on that button. But I would recommend, since your brokerage has created your forms packages for you to be able to use in a transaction, I would recommend that you select any of these brokerage packages. So the brokerage package will be denoted by the usage here of brokerage, and it's going to have your broker's name appearing right over here. And then you can also notice that your packages will be in alphabetical order when you click on the next button here. So you see what's happening here. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and select this one right here, the Form Simplicity Residential Listing Package. Once I've selected that, then I've got to click on Create the Transaction. It's going to automatically direct me to the transaction details page with the forms and files that I needed to use here. Okay, so this is the quickest way of creating a transaction because your broker has taken the time to create forms packages, probably has them pre-filled as well. I know that because I think I've seen a couple of Berkshire classes that I've been at offices even or even virtually so there are some things that have been pre-filled by your broker. So again, there you have it. So why not take advantage of doing it that way? Because if I didn't include and if I did not select a forms package, where do you have to pull those forms from? Well, now I got to do that extra step and go to the blank forms or click on the add forms package and then select the forms package that my broker has created here. So I've just saved you some time of having to do those extra 1 or 2 steps. See, my goal here is to make all of us here less clickish. In other words, don't click as many times that you don't need to. Be efficient in your transaction, in your workflow. Because right now we're establishing a workflow and we're going to optimize it to the point where it's going to be very efficient here. Okay. All right. Does anybody have at this time any questions before we continue on? I'm going to kind of give you guys some time to ask some questions in case, unless maybe it's pretty straightforward. All right. And plus, it gives me a chance to take a couple of sips of water here so I can kind of take a breath here. Cool. Let's go ahead and continue on. The next thing I want to go ahead and talk about is right up here. You see right above the photo holder here, there is what we call the transaction email address. This email address where my mouse is right now, this is automatically created by Form Simplicity. You don't have to create an email address. It automatically does it for you. it basically includes the property address, and it's going to be at form simplicity. The number after the address basically is kind of like, for those of us who use Gmail, you know that you can't use the same email address that 5 million other people are using. So therefore you have to put like a number. Well, form simplicity does this because it could have been listed at one point in time. And so therefore it comes up with a random number after the address before the at form simplicity extension. So don't worry about this number here. All you need to worry about is the address and at form simplicity. This is a great email address. And of course, I've gotten several suggestions, and I may throw this by you all as well, because I think this would be a wonderful suggestion for you. It was suggested in a couple of the webinars that I taught, as well as in person, that you can also put this transaction email address in your agent remarks of your listing. Because let's say you could probably put in your agent remarks, for any buyer offers, click on the following link for me to receive your buyer's offer. So instead of sending it to your email address, you can actually have it go directly into form simplicity. All you have to do is incorporate this email address in your listing, in your MLS, and also in any email correspondence that you are going to be including, especially in this example, to your sellers, or maybe to one of their relatives, maybe the seller's relatives or something, right? So that would be something that you might want to do. Now, let's say that, this is how I did it. Let's say that I got a phone call from a buyer's agent asking me, hey, Kaz, what's a great email address to forward you my buyer's offer? Well, I'd give him this one, because then when they do that, they can automatically send it to this email address here. And then when I receive it, it's going to go to the file section of the transaction. So I didn't have to do anything. It's all been done for me. And since we talked about it in the very beginning of the class about going into the preferences section, and I selected email notification. So as long as I did this, I will get notified on my portable device. Kaz, you got mail. And then from that email, I can tap on that link and see what it was that I received. So I don't have to run back to my office or to my home to see exactly what I received in that transaction. I think that's a great way of being efficient, right? I mean, that's how I worked, and I found it to be very efficient for me, especially with my portable devices that I had when I'm out there doing real estate, going to various real estate appointments. So after my appointment, I got the mail. I said, oh, okay, let me take a look at it. Tap on that link, boom, there's the information. Oh, I got a buyer's offer. Yay. All right. So that would be something that you can go ahead and do. Okay. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do here too is take us down to the forms and files section. I don't know if this is something that I need to worry about here, because I think your brokerage basically has all of the necessary forms that you require. But let's say for some odd reason, and of course you would get the approval from your broker to confirm. But what I would say here is, in case you needed to add additional forms, you can always add additional, let's say, blank forms. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to show you that I'm going to load here a form from the Florida library and click on transaction. And I'm looking for the transaction record form. Click on the search button here. And then I can go ahead, here it is. I can go ahead and check mark that and add that specific form to the transaction. But it's only going to be for this transaction. It's not going to be part of your forms package. Just keep that in mind. And of course, speaking of forms package, I can always add additional forms from here. Let's say this particular one right here, and then just add to the transaction from here. Bingo. There you go. All right. So we've added the one form into here. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is your file section. And in the file section, this is where you keep all of your files. Now, files are not editable, not able to be changed because they're essentially PDFs. The only way you're going to do that is by downloading it and then opening up a PDF editor. Okay. But when you open one of these up, let's say this one here, it's going to open up a file, but these cannot be changed. See, I click here, nothing happens. It's only a read-only file. So that means you cannot make any changes to it. But what I want to show you though, and this is a good way of, once again, being efficient. And this is, once again, feedback from members, because without your feedback, we don't make any changes here. I believe we're the only paperless forms management platform that take all ideas from its members. Keep in mind, Form Simplicity is a realtor-owned product. We're the only paperless forms management program that is owned by a realtor association. FloridaRealtors owns and operates Form Simplicity. So you know that anything related to real estate, we're on top of it. And we're dealing with programmers who know and understand real estate, not just computers, but also understand the industry. And that, I think, makes a big time difference here as well. But what I'm talking about is you have the ability to create a transaction file folder. That is, I think, pretty cool. And what this allows you to do, and the reason why I talk about this section here, is because how many of us get multiple offers? And I know you're all raising your hand, at least most of us are. I mean, I can't see you, but I'm just saying. So you probably all receive multiple offers, right? So what better way to organize those multiple offers by creating subfolders in the file section? So let's go ahead and show you. If I click on the new file folder, let's say that I got offer number 1, and it came from Johnson. And then you can give it a description, hit the file, create file folder. And then you have another one. So I'm going to go ahead and put one more, and let's say offer number 2. You got one also. It came from Smith. I'm going to create my file folder. Boom, there you go. So now all I've got to do is take these 2 offers. Let's say it's this offer here, click, and then hit move to file, move to folder. Let's say the first one is for Johnson. There you go. So now this offer goes automatically to Johnson. I can close this folder up, and let's say this one here will go to Smith. So I can move that to Smith like that. And now I have the Smith offer here as well. So I got 2 sets of offers, and there you go. So this is a wonderful way of organizing your offers. As an example, because this type of feature was never available to me. However, if I was doing, let's say if I did go back to real estate and used Form Simplicity, I would also create a folder, and this is just me, called signed documents. So that means after you finish and everyone went through the ESign process, you're going to have a list of signed documents. I would check mark those boxes and put it into your signed documents section so they are not to be confused with these files that you see here. What do you all think about that? I think that's pretty cool as well. All right, so that is the file section. The next thing I want to show you is to go into the top here, once again, in the top of the transaction file, and go up to here and go over here and essentially go into the photos. We want to go ahead and add photos here. So if I click on the photo button here, this is going to allow me to upload my photo. And when I upload my photo, I'm going to go ahead and browse for my photo. And then let's say it's this one here. All you got to do is click and hit open, or click and drag and then let go. That's kind of how you can go ahead and do that. And then close it up. And now I've got my photo here. All right. So as you can see that, then all you have to do is make your adjustment by using this slider here. If you notice, I'm all the way maxed out to the right, but if I slide it to the left, there you go. And then if you have it upside down or whatever, then you can always use these rotating arrows. Then if you uploaded the wrong photo, you can actually hit the remove photo button, but I do have the correct photo. And so therefore click on the add photo, property photo, and then form simplicity has now confirmed that you have now just saved your photo. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get interrupted. I just had a very important phone call that I needed to take a listen to, see if I needed to respond. Okay, anyway, here we go back, and let's continue on where we left off. And the next thing after we do our upload of the photo, again, you're not required to complete that if you don't want to. Now, you also have access to your MLS program. I don't know if, which one you use over there, but I believe you use the Matrix down there, and I think you also use the Rapatoni one, I believe. But whatever program you all used down there, what you would do is go ahead and import your property data. Okay, I noticed that somebody was looking to find out how to do the photo concept again. Not a problem. The way to go ahead and add photos to your transaction, the key here is to make sure you click on the camera button right up here. When you click on the camera button here, it's going to give you this screen here, which will allow you to browse your device, whatever device you use. And then once you browse for it, you locate it, you're going to click here, and then you can click on open, or you can click and drag it over here. Of course, it's not going to let me do it because I gotta remove that photo. And then you have your option to browse for your device. Here you have your rotating arrows in case you loaded this upside down. You can always remove it. So let's say I'm going to remove it, and then I'm going to go ahead and do it again. So you see what I just did here. And then go ahead and click, drag it, close it, and then adjust it as I need to. Just remember that some of the stuff is going to get cut off, and then hit the add property photo. If you select an MLS data import, most of the time bringing the photo automatically, yes, that's correct. And I'll show you that in just a moment. If you're in form simplicity, there is an option for the photos to automatically get imported. I believe also, I haven't seen the import from your MLS program into form simplicity. That I'm not sure, but I know when you're in form simplicity and your import from MLS, the photos come in automatically. So the answer to that is yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you how to do both of those. So here I'm going to click on the import property data button. And as you can see, there are two types of searches you can do. One for MLS, and then also one for tax. So once you do that, all you got to do is for MLS, all you got to do is just type in an MLS number. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go, since I've got that listing up on another screen, I'm going to copy that and then paste it right into here. So that is the only thing that you have to do, is to enter in the MLS number. Then you're going to click on the import MLS data, and then the results are appearing here. And by the way, when we get to the search results, it's not coming directly from your MLS. It's actually coming from MLS Advantage. All right. That's where it's coming from, MLS Advantage, because that we can't go directly into your MLS, but we do get data feeds from your MLS into MLS Advantage, and therefore you're going to be able to import that way. There may be times that you might see multiple addresses with the same MLS number. Again, that's because we're covering the most of the entire state of Florida with all of the listings and solds and so on. And so therefore, when you pull up an actual listing, you may end up pulling from another area too, because the MLS listing format is exactly the same. So that's a possibility. So don't panic. Oh man, what this? There's a listing coming up from Jacksonville with the same MLS number. So just choose the area that you're looking for. Just look for the listing that you want to import. Then after you do that, you're going to click on the select button here. And here you have your information. Here you have your property information. You have your listing information. You have your seller information. And you also have your buyer information here. Okay, so that would be something that you can go ahead and be able to do. Now, notice on the bottom left-hand corner, it does say, as long as it stays checked, you can automatically include just main photo only. One photo only gets to go in here. We have blanket permission from all of the MLSs to just import the primary photo. In most cases, it's probably going to be the frontal view, depending on the MLS. I don't know what your MLS rules state in terms of photos, whether it's, if it's more than the primary photo, like you may have your first photo allowed to have, let's say, a picture of the ocean front, if it's a condominium, right? So that is based on each MLS. I normally do both imports, first MLS, after tax. Is that correct? Yeah, I used to do 2 imports. When I was a realtor, I always would do 2 imports, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Now, for this particular example that I have here, the only reason why I would use the import from MLS, I would not do it in my example here this morning, because I'm in here as a seller's agent. And if I imported the information from MLS, whose information would come into my listing agreement? The other agents and the other brokerage, right? And then I have to erase all of that and then put my brokerage information in, which, why do I need to do that? So the only time that I would import from MLS would be if I was a buyer's agent. So this information can go directly into contracts, into the contracts. But again, a common question that I get in all of my classes is, well, why would you want to import from MLS? Sometimes the MLS information is not accurate. And that's true. And that's where, when that one member made this comment, that you normally do 2 imports, one with MLS and one with tax. I always included both of those in a file. Okay, you can't do both and have both types of information appearing. It's either going to be an MLS import or it's going to be a tax import. I don't know if you notice here that you only have this or that. You can't put them both together to merge the information. So in case anybody was thinking that, you cannot do that. All right, it's either going to pull in from MLS or it's going to pull from tax. But the nice thing about this is that if you pull in from MLS and you put that into a contract, you can always make changes to it. And what I always did was, like what this one member said here in the chat, what I would go ahead and do is I would go ahead and upload and include in the file section the MLS printout, and also include the tax printout. So if there was any question as to what is in the transaction, I can just say, well, I made the change because it's not correct in MLS. I made the change in the transaction based on what the tax record had. So I had both MLS and tax included in my file section. That's kind of how I did it. Everyone does it differently, but that's kind of how I kind of showed exactly what kind of information I had. All right. So I hope that was a helpful question to you. Then what we're going to go ahead and do is I would not do a MLS import. I would go ahead and go into here and do a tax search. So here I'm going to go ahead and do a tax search and pull that information up that way. Now, a tax search would also maybe be handy for maybe those clients who's never had listed in MLS. They may have had the property for over 35 years. Now it's time to kind of give it up because they can't maintain it anymore. So they are going to finally ask you to put this together and have it listed in MLS at that time. Okay, so that would be something that you can go ahead and do as well. So I'm going to go ahead and now show you that by typing in the actual address. So the actual address is 3030 Meadow Lane, but I'm just going to type in 3030 Meadow. That's it. I don't have to put type. I don't have to put the direction, and I don't have to put the unit number, nor the city. Now, I don't know, because I know you guys are in Broward, and I know in Miami, they have like quadrants. In other words, you have like Southwest 25th Avenue, Northeast 25th Street, and so on. And then in the street signs that you look at where the traffic lights are, they normally have at the name of the street in parentheses. I don't know if you have that situation over in Broward, but I know in Miami they do. And I thought I saw some places in Broward that they do that. Just keep in mind that the county, if you're going to do county import, they always go by the quadrant name. What I mean by quadrant name is don't type in the street name. Let's say it was Meadow. Let's say the street sign says Northwest 36th Avenue, then you want to go ahead and make sure that when you search in the text, you type in 36th Avenue in the street name. That's all I'm just saying, because that's how the county usually has it. And I know that's how the Miami-Dade Property Appraiser's Office had it. And I'm not sure if that's something that you all have to deal with, but hey, it's good to at least mention that to everyone here in the audience. The next thing I would definitely need to make sure I change is the county, because that's also required. If I didn't change the county, I would get no results. Note that the default county that is appearing on your screen there is Alachua. Well, the reason why Alachua is appearing in there because that's the first county in alphabetical order. So all you have to do is scroll down to Broward, and then there you go. Now, of course, the best way to pull that up can also be your property ID. That's a possibility. Absolutely. Everyone has their own way of searching. So there's other suggestions here as well. And so once I pulled in the house number and street name and put in the county, clicked on define tax data, and there is that information popping right up. Didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to go to the property appraiser's office. Didn't have to do the extra screens. Go again. This is how I did it, and then I found it to be efficient because I look at it this way: less is more. But if you also can use the county property ID number or the parcel number, that's also okay as well. And that could be an option because let's say if there's any piece of land and there's no street address, then you have no choice but to put in the parcel ID number from the county. And therefore you do have to take that extra step to go to the county's website and pull that information up. So there's that option there as well. Once I find that information, click on the select button here. And now this is exactly what I'm looking for. I am looking for just plain old property information. This is what I'm looking for when I'm doing a listing agreement. I'm working with the seller, and this is exactly what I would want to have. So then all I've got to do then is to click on the save information to the transaction. And now it's got that information included in here into each of these forms. The last thing I'm going to talk about before we go into the ESign program is you need to also include your transaction participants. That's the fourth step that we need to include. All right, here we have our sellers, the first seller and the second seller. Now note that here where it says seller names, it has Eric and Susan Friedman. Now notice in each individual sellers, we don't have a last name for Eric, but we do have one for Susan, because this is how it's coming from the tax. Then if you actually look at the tax, they don't have Eric Friedman and then Susan Friedman. They just have Eric and Susan Friedman, period. So what you also need to keep in mind here too, and kind of clean it up a little bit, is you want to make sure that there is a last name here, because if you do it like you see it now, and when it's time to use this for ESign, well, all you're going to be able to do is have Eric just sign Eric, which is not the legal way and not the correct way of doing it. Also, who can tell me, besides the two sellers, we're missing a couple of transaction participants here. And this is when we're working on the listing. And this is the only time that this would occur. But who is missing in this transaction participant list? Does anyone want to take a stab at this? Okay, if not, that's fine. Yes, there you go. Thank you. Agent and broker. So if your broker needs to sign the form, you need to add the broker as one of the transaction participants along with the listing agent. Correct. Very good. So therefore, the listing agent and the broker in your instance needs to be added here. Now, in my instance, when I worked for my brokerage, only I needed to be included. My broker told me not to include my broker's information. But again, if your broker is telling you that the listing agent has to sign as well as the broker, then you have to follow your brokerage lead. Just follow what you've been told. Don't kind of sometimes follow me, because each situation is different in the state of Florida. So yes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we're going to add the last name of this person here and then add the listing agent's name. So here I'm going to click on Add Seller Parties button, because that's the people I am working with. When I click on Add Seller Party button, here we have the seller's names. We have them listed down here with no email address. So if you do put an email if you do put in an import from the tax or wherever, try to make sure that you get their email address filled in here. Now, first of all, I'm going to fix Eric's name. So the way to properly do that is to click on Seller Party 1. And now I'm going to type in right here the last name. And then as soon as I type in the last name and click on the side, you see how it fills it up there. So the way to properly fix that is to go into either Party 1 or Party. All right, so that would be important. And then put in their email address. And of course, your brokerage will probably have the brokerage, seller brokerage information automatically filled in, because I'm assuming that your forms packages at your brokerage has some pre-filled information in here as well. But what's missing is the broker and the agent. Now I can go ahead and fill my name in, fill my broker's name in here manually by just typing it in. I can also do the same thing with me. I can type in my agent name and all that good stuff and just type it away. Or, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the class when we talked about contacts, But you can also, when you create contacts, you may consider adding yourselves as a contact and your broker. That way it will be easy for you. Instead of you having to type it, you can actually insert that information anytime you create a listing transaction. So let's go ahead and show you how that is done too. I'm going to click on the add from contacts link here, and it's going to take you to the add from contacts pop-up window here. So once we set this all up here, then what we're going to go ahead and do is now locate my name, Kaz. So I'm the agent, and here we see my name. This is my name right here. Here's my email. All I got to do is just click on my name, and it's going to take me down to the agent. But if you notice, when I click on my name, it doesn't take me to that. It takes me to the first available transaction party line here, which is seller number one. Well, I'm not seller number one. I'm the agent. So how do I get my name down here? Well, it's very easy, because in step number 2 here on your screen, it says use the drop-down menus to assign the selected contacts to their appropriate transaction role. So that means if I click on this, I have now the ability to change my role to agent. You see that? And then everything else gets rearranged. That's pretty cool. And let's say that you have to add your broker. So then your broker's name would be whatever. So it'd be Marianne's name. You would insert her name. I'm just going to insert my name a second time, because I'm a one-man office. And of course, I can change that party number 2 to be broker. So you see what I'm doing here. So you've got the flexibility to go ahead and make those changes as you need to. Now, I don't like to use real people's names in my training classes here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the true owners of this property in my training world that we're going to work with here. So here I'm going to type in, okay, I guess I got to add that person in here. So let's say that the person who I'm working with, his name is Jerry Mandarin. So if I type in Jerry Mandarin, he is party number 1. Again, the other person who owns it with him is Vera Cruz. So we have Jerry Mandarin as party 1, Vera Cruz as party 2, and then we have the agent and broker. So once we set this all up here, click on the add contact button, and now the seller information is automatically appearing here. And then all I've got to do is select each of these parties. Notice that Jerry's name is here, so is his email address. Same thing with Vera. My brokerage information came from the package that my broker has created. We have the broker. So here we have the broker information right in here. And then, of course, the seller's agent is also included here as well. Once we have everything all good to go, I'm now going to click on the Save Seller Information, and voila, here it is. Now, this is the third way of creating a contact. Pretty cool, because let's say I met Jerry and Vera for the first time. If I did, and I never had them in Form Simplicity into the contact section, it will automatically default to these 2 here. They would add them as a new contact, okay, which I think is what we want. So it saves me the extra step. Having created a transaction with these 2 people, it now will save me a step of having to add them into Form Simplicity. So this is a third way of adding. We showed it to you the first 2 ways in the last hour, where we said that you can click on the add a contact or import your contacts into the contact screen. This here is the third way, where once you've added a contact into a Form Simplicity transaction and they're brand new to you, they will automatically appear in the contact section in Form Simplicity without you having to lift a finger to type that information in. That I think is a great feature, I think. But here I'm going to just update the features because I've had them in Form Simplicity already. And then all I have to do is to go ahead and click on the Save Contacts button here. And now those contacts have been successfully saved. I didn't make any changes to them because there was no need. But once I clicked on that, it kind of made like a dummy change. In other words, no changes were needed to be made, but it still saved it, even though nothing was needed to be changed. But you can always change a person's email address as you need to. Once you set all of these 4 things together, all we have to do, note, is to go into that listing agreement to show you that we've imported our data and we've included our transaction participants. So here we have it. Here's the 2 contacts. Here we have the property data that was imported from the tax records. So now all I've got to do is go in here and fill out the rest of the listing agreement form. Any questions before we go into ESign? Okay, let's keep on going. All right, once you're done with all of this, okay, once we're done with all of this, now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go right in here and do an ESign session. And the way to do an ESign session is this. And by the way, if I have time, I want to let everyone know that in about a month or 2, maybe 2 months, I think is what I'm looking at, that ESign will be upgraded to what we call version 2.0, which is going to reduce the number of steps I'm going to be showing you in this session, because this is what we're all currently running at. But I believe you're going to be probably part of the next group where we're going to show you how you can upgrade. And of course, you'll be running parallel with the current version and the new version. And you're going to see that instead of 6 steps, you're going to be reduced to 3 steps. That is, I think, another time saver coming down the pike here as well. So let's go ahead and select the forms that we need, and then also the file that we need. And then once you select that, all I've got to do is click on the ESign program. Now, before I do that though, let me just quickly go over this command line here on the forms and file level here. You may have a client who doesn't want to use ESign, and there's usually clients that don't, because for some odd reason they don't trust it, or for whatever reason. They want to do it the old-fashioned way, where they want to sign by hand, and that's fine. So then all you have to do is just check mark your boxes here, click on the print button, and then you can print hard copies of this, and then they can meet you at your office. All right. Let's say that you have a form, you have a client, excuse me, who is out of town that also want you just to email them so they can print it, sign it, and then scan it and then forward it back to you. So then you can actually go ahead and email them that copy. Also, you may have a client who still may use the fax. Now, of course, the fax services are currently unavailable because of the fact that we're changing our fax services. And so therefore, at this time, they basically disabled the current tax feature to go with another similar eFax program, in case there are some members still using that. Also, you have the option to delete your forms, something that you don't need in a specific transaction. So let's say that this property on 3030 Meadow Lane has been, the year built is 2017. So then all I've got to do here is to click on where it says lead-based. I don't need this. And then this property is, yes, it is in an HOA. So then I would leave this form like it is. But I can go ahead and delete these other two forms. Make sure I don't delete this other one. And then delete that. And now those two forms are gone. Form Simplicity will confirm that those two forms have been deleted. All right, so, and then of course, you can always download those forms. Anytime you download a form, those forms, even though you may have a PDF editor, those are locked, secured, locked. In other words, you can't open it up even if you had a PDF editor, because they have Form Simplicity has those programmers have set up a security block of some kind that, because it's licensed to FloridaRealtors, you're not going to be able to go in there and make any changes to the form. Okay, so let's go ahead and now work on the ESign program. Click on the checkbox here, click on the checkbox here, click on ESign. You all should be able to see ESign, that button right over here. Okay, before I click on that, I see a question. Sometimes when I email forms, it does not open when the email is received. I guess I need to call the help desk to figure out why. When you email forms, okay, now, yeah, it should, well, when you email forms, basically what it's going to do, it's going to send them, whoever you're sending this to, they will not be able to do anything because it's a static file that you're sending them. So when they open it up, all they get is an attachment, but they can't fill anything out. All they're going to have the ability to do is to open it up, print it, and then view it. But in terms of them filling it out, they will not be able to do that. That would be the only thing that I'm assuming that might be what you're talking about. But let's say that your client still can't open them up, period, for them to print it or download it. Then yes, I would then contact the tech helpline, and it doesn't open at all, neither to view. So I would go ahead and contact the tech helpline, and they can go ahead and take a look at what kinds of issues you're experiencing with that. So that would be the good thing for you to go to them for sure. Yeah, I don't have an explanation for that because it should open it up. It could be something, maybe the version of the Adobe Reader that they have. You have to also keep in mind, unfortunately, we got to kind of hold the customer's hands as well. Just make sure that make sure you find out what type of version they have. In other words, what is the version of their Adobe Reader? That's kind of what I would take a look at. And if they have a very old version, that may be one of the reasons why it may not open up, because the version that you may have or the version that we are looking for to be used may not be compatible. That can also be a situation there. But I would go ahead and do that and have them check it out. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and click on the ESign button right here. And here are the signers. If I didn't have their email addresses, I would not have gotten a list of signers here. So I don't know if anybody ever experienced that, or all of a sudden you say, hey, mine doesn't look like that. How come mine's a blank screen? Well, again, you have to make sure that you put in their email addresses. All you got to do is check mark these boxes here. So let's say you have to include the sellers, yourself, and the broker in your office. Then you just do that. Or I can go ahead and select this top button right here, and it's going to automatically check mark each of the names that you see on this list. Then I'm going to go ahead and click on the Create New Session button here, which will take you directly into the 6-step process of ESign. And as you can see, here they are. The first thing that's required is the session title. So here depending on how you need to have it done or how your brokerage needs to have it done, I would probably just copy and paste my transaction name. Or put in the client's name. It doesn't matter. So you can do it that way or the other way. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is also include here what type of e-sign this is. So let's say that we're going to do a seller's package. I can do that. All right. I can then put my message to both Jerry and Vera. So I'm going to type in here, Jerry and Vera. Please review, initial, and sign at the designated places. Now, also notice that my email signature at the end of the message is automatically there. And where did that come from? From preferences, general settings, and my email signature right here. All right. So that's how we got that information to appear there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my eSign screen. And of course, I can go ahead and put in the next thing, and that is the CC email. The CC email, that section, what that is a field where you're going to be entering in email addresses of people who should get a copy of the signed documents, but they did not participate in the signing session. So I'm guessing you all have a transaction coordinator. So if you do have a transaction coordinator at your brokerage there, you may want to put that person's email address here. So as soon as everyone signs the document, instead of you having to send an email directly to the transaction coordinator, you can stick that email address right there in the CC email field. And that way, as soon as everyone signs, boom, it's going to go straight to the transaction coordinator. That's pretty cool. That I think is pretty efficient, right? So that would be something that I would go ahead and do here. Now, the next section I want to talk about is your signer sequencing. You can send it to one signer at a time in order, or you can send it to all signers at the same time. So that what you can do there is decide which one goes where. Now, me, this is just the way I did it, I would be apt to do the second option, send it to all signers at the same time. Because if I'm including this listing, new listing checklist and the listing agreement, it doesn't matter who signs first, does it? So that could be no difference there. However, you may want to keep in mind that if you happen to include the seller property disclosure form, first of all, that form is electronic and e-sign. And then also, seller number one is the only one that is basically going to be what? That is the seller number one will be the only one that's going to go into the seller property disclosure form and click on the check boxes that says yes, no, I don't know. And then if there's a seller number two included in there, then seller number two, all they do is review what seller one selected, and then they would initial each page. So then I would go ahead and do the top option, meaning it's going to go straight to seller number one. Then after that, it's going to go to seller number two if there is a seller number two there. But I'm going to go ahead and do this option here. You can also set reminders where it can go up to 30 days. You can remind them, and you can also put an expiration date here as well. And of course, it says you can only add up to 90 days into the future. But if you click on it, it's your calendar pop-up, and there you have it. All right, I'm going to disable that. I'm going to go ahead and click on the next button, which then takes us to step number 2. Notice we have our two buyers, the agent and the broker. Notice also that for ESign allows you to have the same email address for both sellers, because Jerry doesn't use email, he uses texts. Vera still uses the email, but I would like to have Jerry sign the form. So I'm going to ask Vera if it's okay that Jerry use her email address. And she said, sure, no problem. So then I assigned Vera's email address to Jerry. And then both of them will receive their own individual ESign invitations in the email format. It's going to be addressed to each of them. One's going to go to Jerry. The next one's going to go to Vera. Okay. So that would be something that you can go ahead and do. And then, of course, I got my agent and my broker's information appearing below them. I can also edit their information, each of them, because let's say I spelled their name wrong or I have the wrong email address. So this column that you see here allows you to edit any of the signer information, including providing an authentication for each signer. So if you want to do that, you want to give them some sort of security where each of them will have no choice but to put in something, you can actually go ahead and give each one of them their own little password. And of course, you can send it to each individual signer note there as well. If you want to give them maybe the ability to put in their phone number where they're going to get a authentication code, that can also happen as well. But I'm going to go ahead and close out of this and continue on. Next, now this is where you're going to assign all of the signer roles. All I got to do is select seller number 1, Jerry, seller number 2 is Vera, and then I'm both the agent and the broker. Once I click on and put in all of the signer roles in here, then I'm going to go ahead and click on the next button. And now those 30 signing locations are all there. You got the broker, agent, and the 2 sellers. But then we have a file that I have to use in this specific transaction. So I'm going to show you how to add the fields there. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on the next button. And as you're going to see, here we have all the necessary people. Here you have the 2 sellers. And here we have the agent and the buyer. I'm sorry, agent and the broker, excuse me. And that's all been pre-filled. But then when we go down to this new listing checklist, I need to have each of them sign here. So then all I've got to do is drag the signature, bring it over here. If I need to make it as long as that field is, I can do that. And then include the date. And then click on the drop down and select the next seller. See, this is the agent doing all of this. Now here it just asks for the agent signature. I gather the broker doesn't need to sign this. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my name as the agent. Okay, let me just make this nice and neat here. All right. So that's how you can get that all pretty much set up. And this is how you can go ahead and do this on the fly. Then on the right side of your screen, you can always mark up your forms here as well. So let's say that what you see up here is your contract and you included that in your ESign session. All you have to do there on your right-hand side is to click and then just drag where you want things to be struck out. All right. But then what do you normally need if you do strike-throughs or add text? And you know the answer to that is you're going to be just adding initials by just selecting the people who have to initial this. And then you can just make it work from there. All right, let's go ahead and keep on going. So everything is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and click on the next button here. And then after I click on the next button, I have one last chance to preview my information the way I want it to be. And if I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to go ahead and click on the next button. And then it's going to come up with this screen where it's going to give you one last chance to review it before you send it out to the clients. If you're satisfied with the email information that you see there, all we have to do is then click on finish. And now it's going to each individual for signature. So now I'm going to play the role of the client. And of course, I got logged off because I had to redo my reboot there. So as you're going to see, there should be the two emails coming up. And of course, you're going to get an email letting you know that the session has started because it's already been sent out. So the first one we're going to have is Jerry. The second one is Vera. So all Jerry has to do is to go ahead and open up his email, click on review and sign. And then once he does that, it's going to ask him to make sure his name is in there correct. He can select any of these signature fonts. And then, of course, he can also draw it, but he can't save it. He has to draw it every single time you send him an invite to ESign. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just select one of these, and then they have to go to step number 3 to agree to the consumer disclosure. They can also decline to sign if they chose to do that. Well, I'm ready to sign as Jerry. And then this is what Jerry gets to see on his end here. So now it's just a matter of him scrolling and clicking. Boom and the boom. And then there we have that. And then I'm going to click here and here. And then if I'm done, oh, Jerry's not done. He forgot to fill in one required initial. I think I'm done. Nope, he still forgot one more. And if he's done, then this is the screen that he's going to see. Click on yes, he's done. And now it's going to do the other person, Vera. And I'm just going to go through this a little bit quicker because I kind of already explained it all. And we're going to go ahead and select this. So we have a different signature. Vera can also decline. Click on start. And I'm just going to scroll down and just complete all of these so we don't take any additional time. So while I'm doing this, does anybody have any questions? So just give me a moment here while I click, and I'll just keep looking at the chat feature. And then she's done. Yep. So now what we're going to do is now I'm going to go ahead and play the role of the listing agent. So give me a moment here to go into my webmail where my two sections are needing to be looked at. Here we go. And sign in. So here we have here. So now I have to sign it as the agent. I'm going to use this signature here. Start. And Now I've got to do my thing. And then we're going to show you the broker, and then we're going to show you what the result is. And I think we'll be basically completed. So give me just about 5 more minutes. I know when we may be just a minute over or past our time. So we're almost done. And then we're done. Yep. And so now the agent has completed it. And then, of course, we've got that signed here. And then we're going to have the broker sign. Again, this is what the broker has to do. And this is the process that you need to do. So let's say we're going to use that one for the broker. Start. Got it. And continue on. And here we're going to go ahead and just do this pretty quick. And we are done. So now everyone has signed their portion of the form. So when you click on here, I want to just show you that at the end of each signer, remember we set up the email notifications. It says invite. So Jerry got invited first. Then it says that Jerry had viewed it. And then also Jerry had signed. So these are the types of notifications that you will get from ESign that we did in the very beginning of the session. So that way you don't have to go into a transaction, go into the ESign sessions, click on that send status to see what the progress is. You can actually get the progress right there via email. To me, that is very efficient. That is more efficient than having to do how I showed it to you earlier in this session here. Okay, so now we're going to go into the form simplicity transaction to finish this up. So now we did this one here on Meadow Lane. Hopefully, there it goes. Here's a good example. So here we have the 2 documents that were signed, because it says it was received from the digital signing service. But most importantly, what you see here is you're going to see this, what we call the COA, or the Certificate of Authenticity. And in this Certificate of Authenticity, it's going to provide you with how everyone has signed this session. It's going to give you the session ID number, unique to this transaction. It's also going to give you the signer information, which shows you each of the signers, how they sign. It also includes 4 timestamps, okay, for each signer, when it was sent to them, when they viewed it, when they read the disclosure, and when they each signed it. So that's 4 timestamps and the date stamps for each signer. And then it's going to show you the activity, how each one signed. The latest signer would be the top one. The beginning signer would be on the bottom. And then you can kind of see those are date and time stamped as well. So if you happen to notice that maybe both of them are working at the same time, you'll see the same timestamp and date stamp for each name. So you kind of have an idea how they each signed. Then last but not least, you have the consumer disclosure agreement that everyone had to agree to before they clicked on the start button. Most cases, just like me, if you look at the terms of use on a software program, how many of us actually read that? Probably none of us. If so, maybe a few percentages of us may read that. So a lot of people just probably click on that checkbox, move right along. Okay. Now, the one thing you can do when you open up, let's say in this example, the Certificate of Authenticity, you can always change the name of the file, because if you notice, I can click here. But also what I used to do is change the file description. Instead of it showing received from digital signing service, I would actually identify this as Certificate of Authenticity. And then I can go ahead and hit the save button. Now, what I also want to show you very quickly, and it's not going to take too much longer here, What you can also do, remember I said when we were going in and talking about when we first created a transaction a little bit ago, we said that you can create a file folder, and I created one that says signed documents. Well, if you open this up like we just did, you have a folder option right here, right directly from the PDF viewer. This is a PDF viewer here. I can go ahead and click on that select folder, and I can click on signed documents and have that save automatically into that folder. So I don't have to worry about remembering to do that. And if you change the description or the name of each of those files, you can have it go automatically to the signed documents folder. But I can go ahead and also do it like this, click on move to folder and decide to put it in here. So I can kind of keep this nice and clean. You see what I'm in and organized. So think of these file folders as kind of like a file folder in your cabinet, you know, the old-fashioned cabinet. So, but this is like a file cabinet in the cloud. Okay. And then last but not least, and then we are done, is you can actually go ahead and archive this transaction by clicking on archive, because you got paid, your broker paid you already, you got your commission check, you want to put it away. So you don't want to see it again because you took care of it. So then all you have to do is to click on archive transaction, click on yes, I want to archive this transaction. And of course, now we have archived it. But then you also want to do an extra step and decide to change it to whatever status you archived it to. If you've sold it, we want to put a close on it. If by some chance you had to withdraw that transaction, or maybe it was expired, then you would put the status accordingly there. But let's say we sold this transaction, click on the close, and now it's archived and it's now put away. So notice on the home screen, it's no longer there. And if you want to check out all of your transactions that are archived, you're going to click on transaction, click on archived, and it's going to automatically take you right over here. Okay. Before we conclude, does anybody here have any questions before we are done? Because this is all I've got to talk about. Okay, I don't see any here. I don't. So let's go ahead and just say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me for this class for a couple of hours, because it does take a lot of things to show you that you may or may not be aware of. So thank you very much. I hope you have a pleasant rest of your afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your upcoming weekend. And while you're doing your real estate, once again, please be safe out there while you're doing your real estate. So with that, take care, everybody, and have a wonderful day. So long, everybody. And a recording will be coming out to you sometime this afternoon. So long, everybody. Take care.